I would like to start with an acknowledgement. And throughout these 7 video conferences over the next week, there'll be Green Party members joining us, we hope, from all across Canada. We acknowledge that no matter where we are and where we live, we all are on traditional lands, in many cases unceded lands, that for thousands of years were under the sole stewardship of the many indigenous nations that live in this vast country. We're grateful these peoples cared for these lands for millennia, ensuring the land remained healthy and abundant in its many gifts. We gratefully acknowledge that the wisdom, the care, and the love of these First Peoples is a reason why the nation we now know as Canada is a land of abundance, freedom, and peace that stands as a beacon in the world. Gila Kasla. So welcome and thank you for joining us for this first session of the Zoom calls with the federal council candidates. I will give a caveat right at the beginning. I'm Megan Ardyche. I am located on Vancouver Island. I have never done anything like this before, hosting national events. And so I'm a little nervous and appreciate your patience. Mark De Bruin, do you want to wave, Mark? Mark De Bruin is also on Vancouver Island. He is going to be admitting people. He's the co-host and he's going to be monitoring the chat for questions. And Dave Charles, Dave, you want to wave your hand? Hello. Dave is also going to be monitoring the chat and he will be the timekeeper. And we already mentioned to the candidates, Dave has a yellow card and a massive red card that the candidates should keep an eye out for. Also, just in terms of technical issues, everybody should remain muted. We will be taking questions from the floor, but they will be, if you can put your questions in the chat box, as I said, Mark and Dave will be monitoring those. And we do have set questions for the candidates, but we will be going to the audience as well to ask your questions and make sure that they get covered. Mute and video, speaker view versus gallery view. In the upper right-hand corner of your screen, you'll see it probably says speaker view. That means you're seeing a bunch of small pictures of all of us. If you click on speaker view, it will switch to gallery view, and then you will see a big picture of the person who is speaking, and everyone else's small pictures will be off to the side, and you can sort of move that around your screen. But this way, when the candidates are speaking, we will see them in a more fulsome way, and so it'll be a little more. It'll seem like more of a conversation, I think. For them to be a larger window on your screen. For the people just joining us, we are going to be muted throughout, please, and all questions should go in the chat. And everyone knows how to use the chat. It's down in the bottom of your Zoom screen. In the middle, there's a little dialogue button and it says chat. And people can introduce themselves if you like in the chat, but that is where you will put your questions. And you want to make sure that your chat says to everyone in the meeting. So apparently we can address people in the waiting room. That's new. But yeah, you want to make sure that your question is going to everyone and not to individuals, unless of course you mean to send a secret message. But so just to say, you can't send private messages to individuals, but you need to choose everyone if you want everyone to be able to see it. Okay, gallery view, speaker view, answers to questions. So all the candidates are going to have 3 minutes to do their introduction. Unfortunately, we don't have French translation. The only ones we're going to have French translation for are the Young Greens tomorrow and the non-regional on the 10th. So if you would like to speak in French, you're more than welcome to do that, but we cannot provide that service today, unfortunately. So the candidates will have 3 minutes to give their introduction, and then we'll be moving to questions from there. Dave Charles is the timekeeper, as I said, and he has the yellow and the red card, and also he may be using his phone and as a very faint signal that the time is up.
Megan?
Yes.
I have a question. Sorry, folks, we're all new at this, so there's going to be some unexpected things. I have someone in the waiting room whose handle is US Space Farce. I have no idea who that is or what that is. I have the option to remove that person, but if I do, they won't be able to get back in. We haven't discussed this possibility, but what if we get people trying to enter that we don't know who they are, and we let them in, and then they turn out to be a nefarious character of some sort? Can you disconnect and remove them if they don't actually belong here?
Let me see if I can remove any of you. I can put people back in the waiting room.
And then I could remove them, maybe?
I don't know. Oh, no, I can remove. Yes, it looks like I can remove
I don't want to assume, you know, the negative of anyone here, but given what's been happening with Zoom, we do need to be mindful of this. So I'll let this person in, and we'll find out who it is.
Okay, excellent. And while we're waiting for that person to show up, we have someone on the phone with a phone number 602-339-7629. Can you let us know who you are and where you are?
Yeah, that's me. My name's Dave Dembor. I'm a member of the Facebook group, and I'm the US Space Farce too.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
so that's you.
So you're here twice?
Correct. I'm calling in on the phone. I have Zoom on as well.
Okay, and are you aware of the nature of the meeting you're in?
I am, yeah. I'm a Green Party member here in Harris County, Texas. Just interested in learning more and, you know, seeing what the representatives have.
Oh, that's very interesting. Welcome from Texas. Wow. Okay, so I'm going to mute you again, Dave, and thank you for joining us. Okay, and someone's name says campaign to elect someone or other. We don't know who. Could you identify yourself, please, or rename yourself? Campaign to elect someone. Could you let us know who you are? No? Okay. Is there anyone else? Okay, just for everyone's awareness, you can rename yourself so that we can actually see your actual name. In the top right-hand corner of your small window, there's a little blue box with 3 white dots in it. You can click on that and rename yourself so that your actual name is what shows up. All right, well, lots of people are joining us. I'm really sorry that it's now 3:20. Welcome to everyone who is joining us. This is very encouraging given that the requirement for a password was a last minute thing. So welcome everyone, and thank you very much for coming. Oh, Keith says he's just sent an email to EDA 2.0 with the password. Thank you very much, Keith. Fantastic. Okay. Okay, I think I'll carry on. We did a territorial acknowledgement that was reflective of the fact that we are everywhere in Canada. We have people on the East Coast, we have people on the West Coast, and we have someone in Texas. So we did a territorial acknowledgement that was acknowledging the First Peoples in this vast country. And thank you everyone for joining us. And I think we'll just get started. And all the candidates have heard the requirements. They have 3 minutes for their introduction. And there is a timekeeper who will be giving them a warning when they are running out of their time and when it is time to stop. Also, for those people who have just joined us, if you look in your top right-hand corner of your Zoom screen, you can toggle between speaker view and gallery view. If you're seeing a bunch of small thumbnail pictures, that's gallery view. If you change it to speaker view, once the candidates start talking, then you will see the candidate as the central presence on your screen. And so it makes it a little more of a direct connection with the candidates once they start speaking. I don't have any preference for the order in which people are speaking. So why don't we just start with, we'll do male, female, male. And we could start with Keith and then go to Lia and then Jason. Is that acceptable for you? Yes? Okay, great, thank you. Okay, everybody, please make sure you are muted. If you have questions, you can put them in the chat, and Dave and Mark will be monitoring the chat. Dave Charles and Mark will be monitoring the chat. Okay, so why don't you go ahead, Keith, it's all yours.
Great, thank you. And thank you for organising this event. It's great to get to talk to potential voters as someone who's asking for their vote. My name is Keith Towse. I use pronouns he, him. I've been involved in local community groups for about over 40 years. I started working with the Green Party and environmental groups in the UK in the early 1980s. And I've helped make positive change happen in many of the organisations that I've been involved in. I'm currently CEO of the Halifax EDA, and I'm also on the executive of the Green Party of Nova Scotia. I volunteered for Joanne's campaign last year, and I'd like to contribute to the work of Federal Council. My focus would be on improving communications between Ottawa and the members. I would like to make sure that the lessons from successful campaigns are spread across the country. Our goal has to be to get more MPs elected. I think Federal Council has to strengthen the role of subcommittees to enable more people to contribute to its work. If there are chances to make it easier for staff and volunteers to get our message out to voters across the country, we should make those changes. I would like your vote. I commit to listening to the views of members across Nova Scotia and working hard as your representative. As you know, voting is already open and continues until May 1st. I hope you vote for me. Thank you.
Thanks very much. That was great and under time. Excellent. Okay, Lia, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Lia, and I'm a business consultant. I specialize in sustainable business strategy, and right now my primary focus is on circular economy, and specifically within the Atlantic region. My undergraduate education is in social justice, peace studies, and sociology, and that's what really drew me to the Green Party. And my postgraduate studies are business administration, project management, disability management, lean management, psychological health and safety, all good things to bring to a board. I have extensive government experience. I've served on multiple boards. I'm currently a chair for governance committee on a national board, and I'm comfortable working with cross-cultural groups, and I understand the complexities of intersectionality. I got involved with the Green Party in 2019 as the campaign manager for Lil McPherson. She ran in Dartmouth Cole Harbour. And then I continued on with the provincial Green Party candidate Yvonne Durin, who just ran in the by-election in Truro, Bible Hill, Salmon River. I'm a founding member of the first electoral district association for the Provincial Green Party in Nova Scotia in Truro, Bible Hill, Millbrook, Salmon River, and I currently serve as the membership director.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I'll just say I noticed that David Loby Daughton has joined us. So we're going to go to Jason next, and then David will come to you after Jason. Thank you.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Thank you. I too use he, him pronouns. I can't tell you a whole lot of stories about how much I love politics or governance, to be completely honest. I really wouldn't have ever become a politician. I never imagined politics would be in my future. I visualized a life of exploring the world and kayaking and finding a job I loved and doing that. And as I moved forward in life, starting quite young, probably around the age of 20, which is nearly 30 years ago, I did a program called Canada World Youth, and I started to learn how troubled our planet was. And I've been an environmental activist and environmental educator. I was the first Atlantic Canada chair of the Sierra Club. Going back nearly 20 years ago, I've sat in trees in BC so they wouldn't be cut down. And ultimately, you know, kicking and screaming all the way, I came to politics, and I've run for the Green Party now for counting provincial 5 elections. And I've recently been elected and done a term or most of a term as a municipal town councillor in Amherst. So I have a sense of governance, but I don't sit here saying, oh my God, I really want to do this because I think it's going to be great. I'm willing to serve. I have experience to bring forward. I have a balanced approach. I see that right now we have sort of a couple factions going on from the outside. That's how it seems. And I suspect that there's a lot of potential movement from both sides to build our party to be something we could be really proud of. I certainly wouldn't, it feels very counter Green Party to join on to a voting bloc. Like, things I love about the Green Party is the fact that if I got elected as an MP, I would first and foremost represent myself, my beliefs, and my constituents, and the party would always come, you know, very close second. And so that it makes me nervous going into a position on federal council. I don't want to make any certain promises that I know this or will do that. What I can promise you is that I will read everything put in front of me. I'll very, very, very carefully consider the implications of everything. I have a very good track record of getting things done on boards and in my life in general. And I guess in the last 10 seconds, I'm a married man. I've got 2 children. I'm an addiction counselor. I built and live in an off-grid solar voltaic house. And I'm an active kayaker and paddler. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much, Jason. Okay, David Daughton, you're kind of on the spot here because you just joined us, but we're into our 3-minute introduction for the candidates. So you can go ahead and unmute yourself, and then you can have your 3 minutes.
Thank you. Merci. So my name's David Loby Daughton, and I live on Prince Edward Island, and I have put various things in terms of 250-word descriptions of my approach and what I see as my role in governance. So I encourage you to read that if you haven't already done so. I have had a very varied life. I've had let me just put my phone down there. Yeah, so I've done many things career-wise, been a foodie since I was at university, so I've done a lot of food activism, starting vegetarian restaurants, natural food restaurants, catering businesses, import-export businesses. So a broad variety of experience. I've worked for the federal and provincial governments at different times, so I know what a nightmare that can be, as well as what a joy. And I grew up in England and in Wales. Wales is a land that has been conquered and settled by many invaders over the years. My grandmother was punished for speaking her Aboriginal language. And here I am, you know, being a settler in a land where Indigenous people have been oppressed for a long time. I do attend Indigenous ceremony. I've been honored with an eagle feather by a Mi'kmaq captain in the Mi'kmaq Grand Council. And before anything else, I have to apologize for being late on the call. It sounds corny, but I was on a mission of mercy to a widow woman, and I got home much later than anticipated. So we have not much time left. Jeepers. Je parle français plus ou moins, il me faut pratiquer toujours, mais et j'aime beaucoup l'opportunité de participer avec le Parti vert du Canada, et j'ai fait ça pendant une trentaine d'années, 36 années. Okay, merci beaucoup. I think that's my 3 minutes.
Very well done, everyone. Excellent. Thank you so much. And I will just say that Lucas Nill was invited to attend this Zoom session and all the Zoom sessions, but he did not respond to say he would be able to attend. So that's unfortunate, but we're very glad that the 4 of you are here. Okay, so several of you have addressed a background you may have in governance already, but can you tell our participants what your understanding is of the Federal Council, the Green Party Federal Council's mandate, and whether and how it might need updating and why? And Lia, why don't you start us off with that?
Sure. So I'm new to the Green Party, and I would feel that I'm overstepping by commenting on a structure in which I'm not involved in. I'm not in the internal process. I've heard currently that there is a mix of feelings of how current governance is running, but I'm really fortunate to have heard nothing but positive from the Nova Scotia representative, Camille, from people I know and trust. So I was quite surprised to hear that there is any sort of, I guess, dissatisfaction in the way things were currently working. What I can say is that I have looked at the minutes, as I am an interested member, and there isn't a whole lot, but I don't understand the reasoning why. And for me, sometimes if you're dealing with legal issues, you don't want that to be public. I would say that in past, my experience both as a board member, as a governance chair creating these bylaws, and also in working environments where I've used models where we do have a board that we have to report to. I've been an executive director for a not-for-profit organization in my past. So I do understand the workings, and within a functional board, I know that they play a fundamental role in the direction of the organization. And that's anywhere from setting a mission to, corresponding business plans and budget. It's ensuring that there's competent leadership. They set the tone. So for me, I have joined in with a group that's interested in revisiting a bylaw that will look at how we use the Carver model in politics and how to get members more involved. But as to the structure as it currently stands, I couldn't tell you anything more than anyone would read on the internet. And again, it had heard positive things by anyone who had Camille. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And Jason, would you like to go second? Jason, you'll need to unmute yourself. And David, I'll just ask you to mute yourself right now. Thanks.
It took me a little minute to get unmuted. How long do I have to speak to this?
2 minutes.
Oh my goodness, 2 minutes.
You don't have to take the whole 2 minutes.
Yeah, there's a good chance I won't. I agree with much of what Lia said. Coming in, having not been on the federal council, and it sounds like she's followed it even closer than I have, I don't have a great deal of understanding. And I have the experience of running for election for town council, and I ran for election and had all these ideas about how things were. And then when elected, I realized that there are a lot of the things that I didn't agree with or didn't understand made much more sense when I had more information, when I was a party to the in-camera meetings, and when I just had, you know, more information. So I don't know for certain what the federal council should be doing differently. I understand that because we have the council and the fund, there's a lot of differences between how I would understand a normal board. So in many ways, the membership through way of the conventions sets the direction, or at least the platform. And then the fund controls the finances, which leaves the federal council in this kind of narrow piece in the middle. So I can imagine some reasons why people would want to expand the reach. But simultaneously, I really believe that being on a board gives me an opportunity to give direction, to you know, call for caution at times. But it isn't a position where I would personally want to be in the role of an executive director, managing staff, or having any direct relationships and as such. So I would want to cautiously see what's going on and probably make some careful tweaks, but I'd be very careful to make big changes that, you know, people before me have put in place for good, secure reasons. Not saying I wouldn't make changes, but I'd be very careful about it. Thank you.
Excellent. Thanks very much.
I used my whole 2 minutes. Sorry.
We may have to shorten the 2 minutes in the next round just because we were so late getting started. David, why don't you go ahead and answer that? And unmute yourself.
Megan, do you want to restate the question for those of us that don't remember?
That have a short memory span? Yeah.
Yeah.
What is your understanding of the council's mandate? How might it need updating and why? So David Loby-Daughton.
Okay, there's these. So my understanding of the mandate is that it is to govern the party according to its bylaws and to reflect the will of the members, to put into action the decisions made by the members at the biennial meetings. And there is the fiduciary responsibility that all governance bodies have to basically act in the good of the party as a whole and to be trustworthy, and, you know, to keep confidential those things that should be confidential, to ensure that there's insurance coverage in place for those things that should be covered, that the party isn't going off the rails, deviating from anything. I find the question pretty easy just because I have a lot of background as the elected president or an elected member of numerous national bilingual boards, co-op boards, Canadian Environmental Network, among others. And I am not power hungry, I'm not a bully, And what I like to do is to make sure that the democratic will of the members is put into place. If I can't agree with it and I can't maintain solidarity with the board, then I resign. Otherwise, my duty is to make sure that the will of the members is going to be followed, and that we have an inclusive, respectful process that engages people and elicits their opinion, not just a few windbags who dominate the thing and tire people into submission. So that's my opinion, and I don't really know enough about the current situation with the council, but I will do if I get elected. Thank you, merci.
Excellent, thank you very much. And Keith, go ahead. David, if you could just mute yourself, and Keith, you can unmute yourself.
I'm going to, unfortunately, loudly agree with most of what the other three have said.
I'm sorry, Keith, you'll have to speak up a little bit.
Sorry. I'm afraid I'm going to loudly agree with most of what the other three candidates have said. Like Lia, I'm associated with the group Greens for Council, whose purpose is to ensure that the Federal Council more closely reflects the views of the members. I think that the current Federal Council, the current staff, the current leadership of the Green Party all do an excellent job. They all contribute probably 150% of what we might expect them to do. The role of the reason that I think that there's debate within the party at the moment is that there seems to be a breakdown in communication between the membership and the Federal Council, and that would be my focus of being a representative for the members in Nova Scotia. I would want to make sure that their views are represented on council and that they're aware of the issues that council is addressing, and that they understand why decisions are made in the way that they're made. To that end, I have committed in the various statements I've made to actually visiting each EDA in the province at least twice a year, so that they get to know me, I get to know them, and that there's a channel of communication that's open and backwards and forwards.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, there's also quite a lot of action in the chat, and I see Joanne Roberts has advised us that Lucas Nill is winter camping off the grid outside of Corner Brook, so that explains why he can't be here today. Mark, you've been monitoring the chat, I think. Are there some good questions in the chat that we would like to pose to our candidates?
So far, Megan, there's really only one question, and then somewhat of a response from someone else to that question. The question has been posed by Pat Carl, and it is, as a possible member of council, what incentives would you suggest council use to encourage EDAs to be active between elections? And she asks to be specific. And David Evan Den Boer commented, more virtual meetings and weekly updates.
Okay, so the gist of the question again is, how would you encourage?
How would you encourage EDAs to be active between elections?
Excellent. Okay, we'll go David, Keith, Jason, and then Lia. David, go ahead.
So as the CEO of an EDA here in Charlottetown, that's a question I should probably be able to glibly and quickly answer, but it's a challenge to be active. Usually my approach is to lure people with food and activities. So if I think the best way to remain active between elections is to focus on issues that are things that all Green Party members should be thinking about and interested in, and then have a discussion that is well set up in a comfortable space with some good food. And that would normally be, that can be, as it has been with the Charlottetown EDAs, piggybacked on other events. And I would like to make sure that we track the responses at each of those meetings and just try and drill down to engage people more with the values of the party between elections, so they're not just coming out of the gate without having thought things through.
Thank you. So just for clarification, you're suggesting that as a federal council member, you would be engaging with PEI EDAs?
I think communication between, I've been a representative on various boards in the past, and it seems to me essential that you report back to your constituency. So, if it required reporting back to EDAs on a regular basis, then obviously that would have to fit in with my life, because I work and do the things that people have to do. But I think it would be entirely possible to, yes, obviously if I'm going away to national meetings representing my province, I sure as heck better be reporting back to the people in my province.
Excellent, thank you very much. Okay, Keith, what's your answer to that?
I think the role of EDAs is to make sure that every 4 years there's a good candidate with a good chance of getting elected. But in order to do that, the EDA has to be active in the community, has to listen to the community, and has to respond, put forward a green solution to the problems that the community is facing. Federal Council and the rest of the organisation of the party at federal level can support the EDAs in doing that by providing them with the wonderful toolbox that's online, by providing them with examples of what works and what doesn't work. But there's nothing that, an incentive, that's more difficult. Active encouragement, active support, engaging them in communications backwards and forwards. I think that's the role of Federal Council. And I obviously feel that that's a critically important part of the job of a regional representative on Federal Council. Excellent.
Okay, thank you. And I'll just say you're very faint again, Keith. So we heard all that, and I don't know what we can do differently, but it is a little difficult to hear you. Okay, Jason, go ahead.
Thank you. Thanks for the question. The question makes the assumption that the council can actually do something that would have an impact at the EDA level. And I'm not 100% sure that we can. And I say that because I think what makes an EDA stay active between elections is hope and community. And I'm not sure from the federal council level that we can really create hope and community, or not certainly with incentives, but I will give a couple answers. But I think it's really important that some of the work that we're going to do that's going to create hope is get more people elected. So we've just went from 1 to 3, and in my time we went from 0 to 1, and so hope is growing. And we also have we have to sing the songs of other areas. But if we really wanted to incentivize it, we could specifically have something for active EDAs that would give them a kickback from donations that came from postal codes within their EDA. currently, if the money's not targeted to the EDA, and you all know how to do that process probably, if the money's not targeted to the EDA, then all the money goes to the national parties. But we could have a thing where if the EDA can demonstrate they're having regular meetings, then you could have a kickback of, I don't know, 5 to 20% of the money that's donated from that postal code. That would be an incentive. It's a specific thing. I also think, coming from the Atlantic region, if we really wanted to help encourage EDAs, we would find a way to hire a second Marlene Wells, like for the Atlantic region, right? If we have a second organizing person to help EDAs, I think it would go a long way. I know the CEO of our EDA spends a lot of time checking in with Marlene. The people in her role are crucial. So I'm not saying the money's there, but those would be two things that we could do to incentivize it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks very much. And Lia.
I think there's great ideas that have come out of this. I do like some of the ideas that Jason proposed. I was thinking more specifically of what an EDA could do, as opposed to the certification of federal, because I don't currently know what that is. But I think it's most important to keep things easy and fun. So when things become convoluted through communication and complicated, we lose people, and it's not because they don't want to be involved, it's because they've been lost. And we don't have to worry about involving everyone. We need to involve some people, bring some key players together in the community and generate interest. We need to go to the people. And what I mean by that is, and I think it was mentioned before, is, we can piggyback off of events. We don't have to create an event each time. There are things that we can attend as a group and have it, be a fun mix-up for our members as well. Right now we're utilizing social media and having that as a meeting. Jason and I are in the same federal EDA, and we just had an online meeting, and everyone in the group was able to meet and check in, see how everyone was doing, and that was really important. And in terms of engaging people, I think it really is dependent upon the region. We really need to understand who our audience is. So I think there's lots of ways in which we can keep people involved, but ultimately, and I'm sure everybody agrees, it's to build a membership and resources, and money's included in that. So and that's why I was part of a group that started the first provincial EDA here in Nova Scotia. So it's very important, in order to support your candidate, to have that already built.
Excellent. Okay, thank you very much. There may be a follow-up on that if we have time. I'm just going to ask everyone to make their answers more brief so that we can maybe get a couple of more questions through before we need to end. Or if everyone's willing to stay a little longer, if you're not able to do that, just let me know. But if you're willing to stay a little bit longer, we could carry on a little bit longer. So that question was around helping EDAs be more active between elections. Now, if you could answer the question, with the advancement of Greens in several provinces across Canada, and having had one elected MP and then getting a second in the May by-election in Paul Manly, what do you think prevented the Green Party from capitalizing on the momentum in these jurisdictions in the 2019 election? And we'll start with Jason. If you need me to repeat the question, I can repeat the question.
I don't need you to repeat the question, but would you like me to answer in a minute or a minute and a half?
If you could answer in a minute, I know that's really cutting us into important conversations, but.
Sure. This is a particularly easy one for me to answer in a minute because I have no idea. It's a really hard question. Why did we not do better than we did? Because the question's saying, why didn't we do well in the areas where we did well provincially? But we did in Fredericton, for example. We got an MP elected where David Kuhn had first had a seat, so a provincial seat. we can, people will blame, they'll blame the leader, they'll blame the other parties, they'll blame the EDAs, you know, they'll blame the public for not having the hope I was talking about earlier. I think that, you know, it's good to take a close look, but what we really need to do is just put our heads down and keep plugging forward. Thanks.
Okay, and Lia, you're next.
So I've talked to different people in Dartmouth Cole Harbour. So I was a campaign manager for Lowell McPherson to have a better understanding of, you know, maybe why they thought that she didn't do as well in that area. But there was huge successes. Jason being one of those. I mean, vote percentage wise, Nova Scotia rocked it. So it's really important to recognize the successes as well as the failures. I think what we're doing is we're building, and that's important. I think it's important to critique positively, or you know, be able to allow discussion around what we can do better. But for me, the federal election in Atlantic Canada, especially Nova Scotia, was not a failure. It was a huge success. We hadn't seen numbers like that across the board. So whatever we're doing, we need to continue to do. But I think the biggest disadvantage that we were at, especially for Lowell McPherson's campaign, was the fact that we did not have resources. There was not an EDA before members stepped up and started one, and there was no prior information that was collected and saved. So that's something we can do as members to help out.
Thanks very much. And Keith.
I'd agree with Lia. I think that we did really well in Nova Scotia. I think that other parts of the country did better. Obviously, in New Brunswick, we got an MP, which was awesome. I think that the building a party to the point where you do actually get people elected under a first past the post system is an incredibly difficult process. You know, I started working in the Green Party 40 years ago in the UK, and you know they've been at it for, you know, they were very active, you know, and up until I left, and you know, 20 years ago, and they still only have one MP there. But so by that measure, we're doing really well, and I think that, you know, in the next election we can do better. As Lia said, we have to build on our successes. We have to have active EDAs. We have to build on the momentum that there is around our core issues.
All right, thanks very much. And lastly, David.
Hey, I think I can be quick. So 20 of 24 ridings in the Maritimes received 10% of the vote in the most recent election. In 2015, only one achieved that goal, and now we have an MP where that was achieved in 2015. So if you extrapolate from 2015 and the last election, then we would have 20 ridings with MPs in the Maritimes alone in the next election. Of course, the reason that we did not elect more MPs in the last election was what I heard at the doorstep was people were scared into strategic voting. What I attributed a great deal of it to was an attempt to make the election into a referendum on climate change when people were not ready to vote in a referendum on climate change. We had a great platform, and a lot of people were impressed by our platform, so turning it into a referendum on climate change, I think, was a huge strategic error, but that's just my opinion. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, we're going to go to another question from the audience. Dave Charles, you've been monitoring the chat in between waving your flags.
Hey, thanks, Megan. Everybody can hear me, I hope.
Yes.
Okay, well, we have a question from Jane, and she asks, how would you bring disparate groups together There was a suggestion on an earlier version of one of the factions' websites that members who weren't successful for council would get on a subcommittee. How will, I gather, you ensure fair participation and coming together as one strong party? I think the first part of the question is probably the most important, and I would say, how would you bring these disparate groups? They may be desperate, but they're disparate groups together.
Okay, bringing disparate groups together internally within the Green Party.
Exactly.
Okay, we'll start with Keith on this one.
I think that inevitably within any organization with over 20,000 members, you're going to get different groups talking among themselves, sharing ideas, sharing concerns. I think that that's what is going on. I don't see that there are fundamental differences between, let's say ED 2.0 and, members for, I can't remember the name of the organization that did the survey. I think that the issue is that everybody has to take a deep breath, recognize that we're all about building a strong Green Party to advocate for our policies, and that recognize that working towards those goals needs everybody to work together. I think that the idea of certainly I'd be keen to serve on a subcommittee if I'm not successful in the election. I think drawing on resources and volunteers within as wide a group as possible will bring the work of Federal Council to make it easier, make it more effective.
Sorry, thanks very much for that, Keith. David, go ahead.
Hello again. So I'm a great believer in the democratic process and bringing people together who have different opinions through allowing them to be heard respectfully and then to vote or reach consensus in ways that come up with the best range of interests that can work together. In the Canadian Environmental Network, there were hunter and trapper groups, there were vegan and animal rights groups. They all had an interest in a healthy environment. So we need, if we're going to succeed as a party, to present a united front, even though we may have internal disagreements. It's fine for people to disagree as long as you have a fair democratic process where there is not, as the metaphor goes, a thumb on the scale. So if you have the membership of a party express their wishes and vote to do something, and then they are frustrated and stymied by some clique or power group within the party, you will get resentment, frustration, anger. I think that can be avoided through good governance, which is one of the reasons I'm interested in running. I mean, my predecessor did a fine job, and I'm running because I think I have some good governance experience.
Thanks very much for that, David. Lia, go ahead.
Sure, I had an opportunity to jot some points down. So as a business consultant, always going in, finding what a common pain is. And if you're able to define that, you can bring people together. So I guess going back to the 6 principles, everyone comes from different backgrounds and is going to bring their perspectives in. But if we create an environment where people, it's a respectful environment, and there's an influential presence that maintains that. And that could be everybody who's elected. And those people who aren't elected, they are, at least with the group that I've kind of aligned with, we've all pledged that we would stay involved in some capacity when we want to see the Green Party succeed. you have to think about how we're collaborating, how we're I guess creating collaborative participation, and we're creating a positive experience for people. And I think that needs to be done at every level, including the board level. So, oh, I'm out of time.
You're out of time. Thanks very much. Okay, Jason, go ahead.
Thank you. I think that although I had already run for the Green Party, what really made me fall in love with the Green Party was going to the annual conference in Fredericton a number of years back. And sitting in the room in plenary when you know policies were being voted on, I was absolutely inspired by the way the membership argued passionately for certain items, and would have continued arguing, I believe, endlessly, except that there was always a chair calling for consensus, calling for a vote, hoping for consensus. And I was amazed at how gently and calmly people let go of their points when they'd lost the vote, and the entire event moved on. And I thought, if the Green Party can operate like this internally, then there's real hope for the Green Party as it becomes a governing body. And I believe that to be true for the federal council as well. It's one of the reasons I chose not to align with the group. I want to make sure that when I get to federal council, I'm able to be Jason Blanch and open to everyone and willing to work with everyone. It's normal on a board or any type of elected group to have disagreements, but respect pretty much always saves the day. I didn't set my timer. I hope that's not too long. Thanks.
You went over, but that's okay. We'll forgive you.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you very much. Okay, on to the next question. Do you think there should be mandatory inclusivity and diversity training for all council members, shadow cabinet members, and staffers? And please don't answer just with a yes or no, but should there be mandatory inclusivity and diversity training for all council, shadow cabinet, and staff members? And we'll start with Lia this time.
Yeah, absolutely think that this should be ongoing training for everybody who's involved. Even the best intentioned people sometimes slip up and they might not know why. So having a board that commits to training, as well as holding people accountable, and that could be just gently reminding people, and obviously escalating if there is continued misuse or discrimination practices. So hopefully we have a discrimination policy on the board, and if not, we should have one. And I absolutely would support continued ongoing training at all levels of this organization.
Thanks very much. And Jason?
I would really have just said yes, absolutely, and tried to let it be. So I'll also say that I agree with everything that Lia just said. In particular, ensuring that there's policies that explain how we can remove people who don't learn the lessons that we want them to learn in this training. I've been part of organizations that have had people who've misstepped, and the group had no power to remove the person, and it's just so embarrassing for the entire organization. So, and we just can't make those mistakes. So one of my favorite things that Trudeau ever said was his answer to why, and he said, well, it's whatever it was, 2016, I think, at the time, and well, it's 2020 now, and we really can do much better. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, David?
So inclusivity and sensitivity should be a matter of lifelong learning. And if a specific board training program is what is considered best, then yes, by all means, do it. And I very happy to participate in such a thing and see it continue. I realized I did not answer the piece in the last question about people who are not elected being invited to sit on subcommittees. And just from a governance perspective, you can't, or you really should not have people who were not elected voting on council. So anybody can be invited as an ex officio member to any committee, whether they were an ex-candidate or not, contestant or not. So I just wanted to emphasize that I'm not committed to that. I'm not opposed to the idea, but you can't have a board that is disseminating its authority willy-nilly. Thanks.
Thank you. And Keith.
Absolutely, yes. You know, diversity training. You know, the party is dominate, doesn't reflect the Canadian population, and I think we have to look at that and work out why, and look at our policies, look at the way we talk to people, and look at who is doing the talking, and learn from that, and reach out to people who can help us understand that. There was a group called Other Ways of Working in the Green Party in the UK that I was very, very involved in, and you know, the processes that we have internally have to reach out to people who aren't typically vocal in political groups, who aren't comfortable in speaking out. Just because they don't speak doesn't mean they don't have something to say, and we need to listen to the people who don't feel able to stand up in front of a microphone and, you know, hold forth for 10 minutes.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, Mark, do we have another question from the audience? Mark, you're muted.
There we go. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there's a question from Dave, which asks, what do candidates think the role of federal council should be during an election campaign?
Okay, the role of federal council during an election campaign. So we'll start with David on this round.
I don't actually think that federal council should have a role other than the role that they are designated. And that may change. Typically in political parties, the governing body concedes to the electoral body, shall we say, and so I don't want to sound as if I don't have any ideas, but typically, you know, the federal council, I mean, typically what happens is the federal council concedes to the campaign group, and that is what has been happening. If the members decide that's what should change, then I would, you know, I would try to reflect the will of the membership in council, but you know, I don't have any brilliant idea about what new role federal council should have, because you can't turn these things on a dime. It would have to be something that's democratically decided.
All right, thank you very much. Keith, go ahead.
I'd agree. I don't think federal council should have a role in an election campaign. I think the federal council's role is to set the direction for the party, set a budget for the party. It's not in operational issues, and election campaigns are, once you have a campaign plan, which you would obviously be set according to the direction of Federal Council. Once you have that plan, it's up to the staff, up to the shadow cabinet, up to the members on the ground to implement that plan. So I don't see Federal Council having an active role in an election campaign.
All right, thank you very much, Keith. Jason, go ahead.
Thank you. I guess one thing that would have some impact is how long the campaign is and how regular the Federal Council, how often the Federal Council meets. I believe the council meets monthly. So if we found ourselves in a several month-long election campaign, I understand that the role of the Federal Council would be to take care of their employee. I think the council has one single employee, which is the executive director. The executive director would certainly have a significant part to play in an election campaign. I think largely the answer would be similar to the answers we've heard, which would be stay out of the way. Like, we've set a direction, but it is our role to supervise an executive director. So if the executive director is going in a different direction than council set, then it would be the responsibility of the council to intervene, to ask for accountability or explanations or give direction. But I don't think it would be the role of the council to set an election campaign direction at all in any way. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Jason. And Lia.
So just mirroring what was said by my colleagues, just overseeing and monitoring the organization, making sure that GPC complies with any sort of legal requirements, ensuring that there's enough resources to carry out the campaign, and that the campaign is carried out in an ethical way.
All right, thanks very much. Okay, we'll have one more round of questions, and then we'll end after this next question, I think, with each of you being given 2 minutes, if we have that time, to tell the audience what you really want them to know about you, what's just really spectacular about you and the really special thing about you. But your next question at this point is, in the context of global warming, do we have time to build on our successes? We had some successes in terms of a higher vote count or vote share, percentage vote shares. We did elect 2 more MPs, but in the context of global warming, do we have time to incrementally build this party? And we'll start with Jason.
Well, that is a great question. And the answer is probably no. The answer is probably that we don't have enough time to have any sort of political response, and we should all join Extinction Rebellion and go to the streets. And I'm not even joking. I've very strongly been considering that is the best option. We look at the Declaration of Climate Emergencies. My municipality made it, we made it nationally, but it's very clear that they were completely empty words. It's made at a municipal level. You see some municipalities are doing some small things. At a federal level, we buy pipelines. So, but then you look at the COVID-19 crisis and you see what a real emergency looks like and how the response comes. So the question is, how do we make any government see that there's a real emergency? And I don't believe the Green Party has a part to play in that. I think that we play the incremental game, but we do something else at the same time. And maybe Extinction Rebellion is it, I'm not sure. But I think we play 2 games at once. Thanks.
Interesting, okay. Lia.
Obviously, there's urgency to react to the climate crisis, and we all have a part to play, and how we play a part in that. For me, you know, in my personal life, it's my business. So I'm a business consultant. I look at things through a green lens. I try to encourage businesses to do the same. I know Keith he's a sustainable business owner as well in the renewable energy field. That's one way in which we can help with the climate crisis, is by our own personal practices and business practices and how we can influence others. I mean, that's the reason why I would like to serve as representative for Nova Scotia on federal council, is as to continue to be part of that change. I think Green Party is doing it best. That's why I joined. When Lil McPherson asked me to run her campaign, I read over the policies of Green Party, and there always has been a sense of urgency as far as I can tell. So everybody has a part to play. I think the board just needs to continue to drive the organization's mission and sustain the 6 principles that we stand upon.
Thanks very much, Lia. Keith?
As Lia mentioned, I have a green business. I actually build wind farms, so you know, I have been doing that for 12 years in the Maritimes, and I think that the answer to the question is no, absolutely not. We don't have time for a green government to take power in Ottawa before we can start changing. We have to make a change in every possible organisation in which we're involved, wherever we can, in every day that we're here, you know, alive. We need to make a change, because it's only through personal changes, it's only through political changes, it's only through changes in the organisations that we're members of that the change that's necessary can come about. And absolutely, you know, the awful crisis, worldwide crisis that we're in the midst of, has demonstrated that change is possible. We just need to find a way to make politicians realise that it's now that we actually need to make those changes, and we need to do it personally every day.
Thanks very much. And David?
Okay, we need to elect the politicians who already know that, not to convince the politicians who are elected already that there's a climate crisis. No, it's not too late. We are about to elect a new leader for the Green Party of Canada here on Prince Edward Island, where the Green Party of PEI is the official opposition. We saw a leader of the Green Party elected, and that was a tipping point in order to create a burst of activity and growth within the Green Party. I've been an activist. I've demonstrated in the streets. I've lived for years in a no electricity, no running water shack, and opened vegan restaurants over 40 years ago, all in an effort to change the way people live and act and think. I was involved with the Green Party of Canada from the first, because we need a political arm and we need to elect people. So it's never too late to elect people. We got to do it every 4 years, usually at the most. So let's get it together and create a government that actually changes policy based on there being a climate crisis. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Okay, it is 4:25 Pacific time, so 8:25. Is that right, in the Maritimes? Am I doing my conversion correctly?
8:21 according to my phone here.
Oh, okay. All right, thanks. So I think we'll draw it to a close, and I really appreciate the 4 of you coming to this, and even though we had a problem with there suddenly being a password required, we have 37 people on this call, which is great. That's fantastic. So I want to thank you all very much, and I'll give you all 2 minutes each. Is that okay, Dave? 2 minutes each for a final statement, and we will start with Keith.
I'm not going to take 2 minutes. I've said, we've all said much of what the argument would be as to why you would vote for myself, for Jason, or for Lia. I think I'll just repeat that my focus would be on improving the communications between Federal Council and the membership. I commit to working hard to bring about the success of Green candidates, whether I'm elected or not. But obviously, I feel I can be more effective if I'm on Federal Council, and so I would ask that you vote for me as the Nova Scotia representative on Federal Council.
Thank you very much, Keith. All right, David, go ahead.
Okay, this isn't an avatar you're seeing. I am an old white guy, but people who know me can tell you that I hire young people. I steer resources to young people, to people of color, to people from diverse backgrounds, Indigenous women. So I try to act in ways that improve situations, empower other people, and I respect diversity of opinion and try to help people to reach common ground. So I think I can keep on doing that in spite of my age and skin color. So thank you, merci, Wallalin.
Thanks very much, David. Lia, go ahead.
My values align with green values. I've studied green policy. I've read Vision Green multiple times. And because of my involvement in the 2019 election, I was able to kind of do a deep dive into the structure and the history of Green Party. And I have a deep understanding of how to communicate effectively within groups, and would be happy to work with any one of the other candidates. I am a long-range thinker. I do value the importance of collaboration, and I do have a strong history of advocacy. So I would be a strong voice at the table, but also listening, understanding, and hopefully, however I'm involved with Green Party, continue to have a positive experience. So I thank everybody along the way for such an incredible experience. I've got to speak with a lot of inspirational Green members because of this election. So please vote for me when you go. I'm more comfortable telling people to say, ask for the vote at the end, but it really is an uncomfortable thing. Now I know. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Lia. And Jason.
All right, thanks. I'm okay if you don't vote for me, to be completely honest. I'm really inspired to see, and hear from the other candidates. I think you have good options. I think we'll be well represented. If not elected, I'll quite happily work building my EDA and probably building a kayak and carry on working in my community. So if you do choose to vote for me and I am elected, I'll give you 100%. I haven't, the time frame doesn't give us a lot of option to talk about what we've accomplished. I've got a creative streak that's been very, very effective in everything I've turned my mind to. And I strongly believe in collaboration. And I really think I can work with anyone. And I'd be very happy to have this position and turn my hand to working at a different level for the Green Party. It was at the end of the last election, I said, what else can I do with the Green Party? What can I do more? Because I see the party's grown so much, and in the little more than a decade I've been with it. And I thought I should give more at this point in time. And I'm here to give it, but I'm very, very happy if you elect any of these other candidates, and I will completely understand, and I may well run again. I'll find another way to work with the party, probably after I've built my kayak. So thank you very much for everyone to tune in. It's, you know, it's a long thing when you sit listening. I really appreciate the time. And thank you, Megan, so very much for organizing this event. You did a fantastic job. Thank you so much,
Oh.
you and the others that you have supporting you.
Thank you very much. And just in the chat, we have a message from Joanne Roberts, who says, so proud of our maritime candidates. Each of you would be wonderful to work with on federal council. And I do think the Green Party is very fortunate to have 4 such wondrous people. And probably it's true, we would be equally well represented by all of you. So thank you so much for stepping up, for doing this. I know it's not easy. It certainly wasn't easy for me either. So phew, I'm done. But thank you, everybody. And I hope you'll, April 11th, the leadership candidates are going to be having a Zoom call on April 11th. So just making a public service announcement there. I don't have many details yet, but apparently they're doing a roundtable on April 11th. And they're considering it as the grand finale of this series of Zoom calls, which is kind of cool for us. So I want to thank you all for coming, and thank you to all our participants who joined us. This is better than I hoped for, I think. So I really appreciate it. And yeah, so have a good night, everybody. And hopefully we'll see you at the Young Greens session tomorrow.